Thanks for staying with us. You're watching WION The World as one. I'm Adhi Janeja and this is Speed News. Let's start with all the stories making headlines today. US Central Command reports that American forces launched self-defense strikes in southern Iran on Monday, targeting missile launch sites and boats attempting to lay mines. Officials say the operations were carried out to protect US troops from threats posed by Iranian forces. The announcement came as top Iranian negotiators arrived in Doha for talks aimed at ending the war. The strikes risk undermining a fragile ceasefire that began on April 8th as Washington and Tehran struggles to reach an accord to stabilize the region and ease disruptions to global energy flows. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has ordered the restoration of international internet access after months of restrictions imposed during anti-government protests and following US and Israeli attacks. Local media reported that the decree communicated to the Ministry of Communications aims to return access to its pre-January state. Authorities had shut down the internet during mass protests earlier this year and suspended it again on February 28th at the start of the West Asia war, leaving citizens limited to domestic platforms and websites. US President Donald Trump has urged Iran to surrender its enriched uranium, describing it as a nuclear dust in a Truth Social post. He stated the material should either be transferred to the United States for destruction or eliminated within Iran under international supervision with a witness present. In his remarks, Trump referenced the Atomic Energy Commission, an agency abolished in 1974 and replaced by successor bodies. Iran-backed Hezbollah says it carried out multiple drone strikes on Israeli military positions in northern Israel, claiming the attacks were retaliation for alleged ceasefire violations. The group reported targeting 3 barracks and a military post around midday, including 4 strikes on the Shomera barracks, as well as attacks on 2 other barracks and a post in Misgavam. Hezbollah framed the operations as a direct response to what it described as Israeli breaches of the truce. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov urges US to evacuate diplomats from its embassy in Kyiv during a call with US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, warning of heightened security risks in the Ukrainian capital, while Moscow announced plans to intensify strikes on Kyiv, including against decision-making centers and repeated calls for foreign citizens and diplomats to leave. Over the weekend, Russia launched waves of drones and missiles, killing 4 people and wounding dozens while deploying its Oreshnik hypersonic missile capable of carrying nuclear warheads. The barrage followed accusations that Ukrainian forces struck a vocational school in Russian-occupied Luhansk, killing 21, prompting President Vladimir Putin to order the retaliation. Colombian presidential candidate Iván Cepeda, representing the leftist ruling party, rallied supporters in Bogota ahead of the May 31st election. Thousands gathered with banners, drums and performances as security forces monitored the event. In his address, Cepeda called for a progressive wave across the country and urged massive voter mobilization at the polls. He pledged programs to guarantee a dignified life, strengthen social fabric and boost productivity, declaring confidently, victory is ours. Colombian right-wing presidential candidate Abelardo de la Espriella of the Defensores de la Patria party held a campaign rally in Bogota ahead of the May 31st election. A lawyer by profession, Abelardo de la Espriella is considered one of the two leading right-wing contenders in the first round of voting, facing off against a crowded field that includes leftist frontrunner Ivan Cepeda. The rally marked a key moment in the campaign as candidates intensify efforts to mobilize supporters in the final days before Colombians head to the polls. Protests in Bolivia entered their fourth week as clashes erupted in La Paz between demonstrators and police. Labor unions, miners, transport workers and rural groups are demanding President Rodrigo Paz to roll back austerity measures amid rising living costs. Road blockades have caused severe shortages of food, fuel and medicine in La Paz and El Alto. To ease tensions, Paz announced he and his cabinet would cut their salaries in half. Meanwhile, cocoa growers from Evo Morales' stronghold surrounded an army base in Villa Tunari, warning the military not to act against civilians. Officials allege Morales supporters are funding the blockades to pressure the government. Mexican public school teachers rally to demand a hefty pay rise, threatening mass protests at the start of the Football World Cup on June 11th if their demands are not met. Around 3,000 members of the National Education Workers Union marched in Mexico City on Teachers' Day and were met by a wall of police to prevent them reaching the Education Ministry. Activists displayed images of some of Mexico's disappeared people near its main football stadium in the capital, hoping to raise awareness as the country prepares to co-host the World Cup next month. About 130,000 people have been officially recorded as missing in Mexico since 2006, when the government launched its controversial anti-drug operation. Hundreds of clowns took over the streets of Lima to mark Peruvian National Clown Day, filling the city's downtown with colors, music and laughter in its annual parade. Performers dressed in a rainbow of costumes danced, juggled and marched through the Peruvian capital. Peruvian Clown Day is observed every 25th of May to honor Tony Perejil, known as the Clown of the Poor, who in the 1980s traveled through Lima's neighborhoods with a multicolored tent to bring joy to local communities. Cambodia's king has granted a royal pardon to former opposition leader Kun Sokha just weeks after his appeal against a treason conviction that was rejected. Sokha, the co-founder of the banned Cambodian National Rescue Party, had been under house arrest since March 2023, serving a 27-year sentence for allegedly plotting with foreign powers to topple then Prime Minister Hun Sen. The decree applies only to his original sentence, which last month was upheld by a Phnom Penh court. His case was central to a crackdown on government critics, leaving Cambodia's opposition in exile or silenced. The pardon offers a rare moment of relief for the country's dwindling opposition. Senegal's President Bassirou Diomaye Faye appointed economist Amadou Al-Aminolo as a prime minister after dismissing Ousmane Sonko's government. Amadou Al-Aminolo, who served former head of Senegal's branch of the Central Bank of West African States, pledged to pressure investors despite the country's strained finances. Senegal faces a debt crisis after the IMF froze its $1.8 billion program due to misreported debt. pushing the country's end 2024 debt level to 132% of its GDP. Osman Sonko, the outgoing Prime Minister, had opposed any restructuring of the debt, estimated at $13 billion, which he said the IMF was advocating, while FI has been less outspoken. The dismissal of Sonko, once a key ally, followed months of tension. In India, the CBI has officially taken over the investigation into the death of Tusha Sharma, who was found hanging at her Marchil home in Bhopal on May 12th. Following standard procedure, the agency has registered the local police case as its own, naming Sharma's husband, Samarth Singh, and her mother-in-law, Giribala Singh, as the accused. Earlier, a special crime unit was dispatched to Bhopal to take charge of the case and begin gathering critical documents and evidence. In the Indian state of Maharashtra, the Pune Municipal Corporation has announced a 14-day restriction on public gatherings effective tonight. Under the new order, all rallies, protests and public meetings will be banned for the next 2 weeks as the city implements measures to manage a fuel crisis and reduce pressure on the civic treasury. As part of these cost-cutting efforts, government officials have been directed to limit unnecessary travel, conduct meetings and training sessions online, and carpool for official duties. Pope Leo has urged governments to strictly regulate artificial intelligence, warning that unchecked AI development could spread misinformation, fuel conflicts, and lead to endless wars. In his first major document titled Magnificat Humanitas, the Pope called for strong legal oversight of AI systems, saying autonomous weapons should never be allowed to make lethal decisions. Pope Leo also warned against leaving AI data entirely in private hands, while urging leaders to protect workers and children from the risks of the technology. Anthropic co-founder Chris Olah has warned that artificial intelligence development cannot be left only to technology companies, calling for greater oversight from governments, religious leaders and civil society. Speaking at the Vatican during the presentation of Pope Leo's first AI-focused encyclical, Olah said there was a real possibility that AI could displace human labor on a massive scale. He warned that AI companies faced commercial and geopolitical pressures that may conflict with the public good, making external scrutiny essential. Schneider Electric says its India data center business is expected to grow faster than its other operations over the next 4 to 5 years, driven by rising demand for AI-ready infrastructure. The company said data centers currently contribute around 15 to 20% of its India business, with the segment already growing at a double-digit pace. Schneider Electric expects India's data center capacity to rise to as much as 7 gigawatts by 2030, up from about 1.5 gigawatts today. South Korea's Kospi rallied to a new all-time high as trading resumed after a public holiday, lifted by optimism over possible progress in US-Iran peace negotiations. Investor confidence improved after President Donald Trump said talks with Iran were proceeding nicely, while warning that military action could resume if diplomacy failed. Across Asia, markets traded mixed in early trading. Japan's Nikkei slipped after recent record gains. Australia's ASX and Hong Kong's Hang Seng edged lower, while China's CSI 300 opened flat. US stock futures moved sharply higher ahead of Wall Street reopening after the Memorial Day holiday, signaling positive global market sentiment despite ongoing geopolitical risks. Oil prices traded mixed in early Asian trade as fresh US military strikes in southern Iran raised fears over stability in West Asia and the future of US-Iran peace talks. Brent climbed above $97 a barrel, while crude futures fell sharply in volatile trading. The US military said it targeted Iranian missile launch sites and vessels allegedly attempting to deploy mines near key shipping routes. Washington described the operations as defensive measures to protect American forces in the region. President Donald Trump added to market uncertainty, saying talks with Tehran were proceeding nicely, but warning that military action could resume if negotiations fail. Trump also pushed for more Arab nations to join the Abraham Accords aimed at normalizing ties with Israel. Gold prices slipped as escalating US-Iran tensions pushed oil prices higher, increasing fears of rising inflation and prolonged high interest rates. Spot gold edged lower despite ongoing geopolitical uncertainty in West Asia. Fresh US strikes in southern Iran targeted missile launch sites and vessels near key shipping routes, even as diplomatic talks between Tehran and Washington continued in Qatar. Investors remain cautious as hopes for a breakthrough remain uncertain. Meanwhile, other precious metals also declined, with silver, platinum and palladium trading lower in early Asian markets as traders reacted to growing global economic and geopolitical risks. The Lionel Messi statue in India's Kolkata was seen swaying in windy conditions on Monday, sparking panic among residents in the Lake Town area of the city. The 70-foot statue was erected in December last year to mark the Argentine World Cup winning captain's visit to India, but just a few months after its inauguration, it is already causing problems. That prompted officials from the Public Works Department to arrive at the location and inspect the statue. Police informed the PWD after complaints from locals, and PWD engineers inspected the structure and subsequently carried out repair work. Officials say loose screws in the primary framework had come loose. The PWD now says that the immediate problem has been resolved and the situation will continue to be monitored. For the first time in their 92-year World Cup history, Spain's squad will not feature a single player from the country's most decorated club, Real Madrid. In contrast, La Liga champions Barcelona have 8 players in La Roja's 26-member squad, including injured starlet Lamine Yamal, who is doubtful for the 2010 World Cup winners' opening 2 matches at next month's tournament. The 18-year-old is recovering from a torn left hamstring who suffered last month during a league match. Nostalgia is hitting all the right notes for millennial music fans. India's iconic all-girl pop group Viva is making a comeback more than 2 decades later. Members of the pop group are bringing their music back to streaming platforms, giving fans a chance to relive one of India's earliest pop girl group phenomena. The group said the return feels magical after continued love from fans over the years. From music nostalgia to global pop culture, Rashmika Mandanna continued her international rise at the Crunchyroll Anime Awards 2026 in Tokyo. The actor shared the stage with Black Panther star Winston Duke during the star-studded ceremony. Duke later called the moment incomparable as he posted pictures from the event online. This year's awards celebrated some of the biggest names in anime, with My Hero Academia taking home Anime of the Year award. Meanwhile, Drake has created music chart history. The Canadian rapper became the first artist ever to hold the top 3 spots on the album's chart at the same time, with Iceman and Maid of Honor. With this, Drake also surpassed Jay-Z for the most #1 albums by a solo male artist, while tying with Taylor Swift among solo acts. BTS fever has taken over Las Vegas. The global K-pop supergroup returned to the city with their Arirang World Tour, selling out 4 massive shows at Allegiant Stadium over Memorial Day weekend. Fans from across the world gathered to watch RM, Jin, Suga, J-Hope, Jimin, V and Jungkook mark their big comeback on the stage. Hollywood star Anne Hathaway has revealed that she spent most of her 30s partially blind due to an early onset cataract condition. Speaking on a podcast, the actor said she was legally blind in one eye for nearly a decade before undergoing surgery. Hathaway described her current vision as a miracle and said she only realized how much the condition had impacted her after recovering. It was an emotional moment at the Padma Awards 2026 as Hema Malini accepted the Padma Vibhushan on behalf of the late Dharmendra. Daughter Ahana Deol was seen tearing up during the ceremony as the veteran actor was honoured for his extraordinary contribution to Indian cinema. The Sholay star, who breathed his last on November 24, 2025, had a career spanning more than 6 decades.